Hello, and welcome to Have At Us, reviews for your pleasure. And I'm Nietzsche.
I'm Joshua.
This is episode 28, Lie Club. And we are talking about the nice cult classic, Fight Club. And this is going to be a nice spoilery talk. All the spoilers. Not that I feel like there's anything exceptionally special to spoil about this film, because I had already forgotten it like hours after we watched it, basically, is what I felt like.
Nietzsche. Do you remember the year 1999?
I remember that with great clarity.
I don't believe you.
I was very young, and the best movie I saw that year was probably a children's movie.
I can't tell you a single movie that came out that year other than this movie off the top of my head. However, I can tell you I did not see this movie in theaters, if that makes you feel better.
It doesn't, though. It'd make me feel better if you did. I feel like it would be your father having taken you and your mother was upset by it.
This would be a pretty inappropriate movie for a kid.
Yeah, it would. It'd be really bad. A lot of sexual things and just the straight full dildo sitting there, though. That was a funny part of that scene.
Yeah, provocative. I like her line with that, though. You don't have anything to worry about, or whatever. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, like you don't have anything to compensate for or something. Because I think she used the word compensate, which just is a loaded word in that context.
True.
And that was fine. There are like small things in this film like that I think are fine, but man.
The overall impression, though.
Not great.
Not great.
I feel like this is a waste of my time to even watch this film. Like, I don't know what people love about this film. Did you enjoy this film at least?
I do enjoy this film.
You do enjoy this film. Name me something you enjoy about this film.
I feel like I'm watching a man descend into madness.
Do you?
Yeah, towards the end especially.
The ending kind of captures that, but without the other, 2 hours of actual build-up to that, I just feel like it was worthless.
This is a pretty lengthy movie.
It also didn't know what it wanted to be.
What do you mean by that?
What I mean is that it kind of wanted to be like a thriller-esque deal, kind of wanted to be like a crime drama thing or something, or like following some psychopathic person, and it never delivers on either of those. It's kind of like a weird slice-of-life type thing. It kind of feels like maybe it's supposed to be satirical at some points, but then it never really delivers on any of those points. There's just no payoff to any bit that we could go with. Everything feels very disconnected. And I don't know if that's because we're supposed to be from Edward Norton's perspective here, since he doesn't get a real name. And they're supposed to feel disjointed because of that, and confused. But I do not watch things to feel disjointed and confused.
Well, I don't agree that they didn't know what they were aiming for. I think the surprise of the movie, if you will, is the twist. Now, I knew what the twist was the first time I watched this movie. This was my second time, to be clear. It had been like 14 years or so since seeing it the first time. Even then, I knew what the twist was. It's a pretty famous one. And I think knowing the answer already may dilute your perception. But if the goal is to have this big reveal at the end and surprise people, which it did at the time, not everybody, but it did surprise some people, then I think it succeeds.
So here's my problem with that line of reasoning. I tried to forgive it on that front. I also knew the twist, because it's famous and old and people spoil this, okay? Like, I at least knew in part. I didn't know all of it, but we'll get into the things that I got wrong. But at the very beginning of the film, I felt something was really off with the line, I knew because Tyler knew, or I must know because Tyler knows. Right? It's a very weird line that you would never naturally think or say. And it creates the idea that something is wrong here. And that he is somehow psychotic and this person is in his head or something.
It may also create the idea that these people are very close.
It did not create that to me. Now, maybe that's, the pre-perception that I knew. But I felt very confident at the hospital scene where he's lying there and he's like, sometimes Tyler, says the words for me. And then he's in the background. He's very blurred out, smoking in the hospital room. And then he says, I fell down the stairs. And then Edward Norton is like, I fell down the stairs. From that point, I feel like it's painfully obvious. Even if you don't know, I don't know how you missed that.
I'm not sure. But again, when you go into this film already knowing, it's really hard to sit there and be objective and be like, would I have picked up on this or not? Him smoking is a pretty clear detail that would give it away, perhaps. But would you have noticed that he was smoking? Would you have been paying that much attention? I don't know.
Yeah, because I was bored. I was nitpicking things already at that point in the film. Don't worry. I would have noticed that he was smoking.
Okay.
Also, smoking is just kind of like a bothersome thing in my world. Like, I notice when people are smoking. I notice when, like at work, someone goes on break. Well, we all go to break at the same time, basically. And then they come back, and I know what they did. They were smoking, because you can smell it. Sometimes pretty far away. So I'm hypersensitive to the smoking game at this point in life. So I definitely feel like I would have noticed that Tyler was smoking there.
I can't say that with confidence. Perhaps, perhaps not. Even if I did notice, would that be enough of a clue on its own?
With the repeated line, yeah. Oh, 100%.
I don't know. I mean, it could still just be he's feeding me the story and then I repeat it.
Yeah, but he says it so far away, and he's clearly not supposed to be the focus of the scene.
Right.
He's very far away, and then, the doctor's standing over him or whatever, and he says the line. Why would he repeat the line? As if the doctor didn't hear it? Really?
Sure, but it could just be a clever way for the director to show that had already been told to him, like, oh, you need to say this. It's during a narration scene, so you can kind of forgive it being a little choppy. It's not necessarily as seen.
I'm not buying that. Not in the slightest.
Okay.
I mean, maybe it really is that I knew the twist and that was the problem, but I spent most of this movie pretty bored. Like, the start is kind of an engaging start, because you're like, oh, cool things, what is happening? But because we just circle back to that, and we take forever to get there, I had kind of forgotten that's how we started, and then we got there, and I was like, oh yeah, okay. And then it felt not as good. I think it would have been more impactful to have started somewhere different. I don't really have a set point, but not with that, before he actually, starts his craziness. You start with him, maybe reading the IKEA catalog or whatever, ordering something. Just something that seems really mundane, and really paint the mundane picture. And then when we actually get to the end, if you still haven't figured out that Tyler Durden is him, or his fictitious, I don't know there's a good word to describe exactly what that is, but...
Imaginary friend.
Sure, we'll call it that. His imaginary friend, then it seems pretty high stakes, right? Like, oh man, Tyler's turning on him, he's a liability, blah, blah, blah. I don't know.
Alter ego may be another word.
That's fine.
As far as the opening, I don't feel particularly strong either way about it. As far as the first shots there that you're referring to, it's such a short moment that it's forgetful. You don't really latch onto it too much, and you get to the actual part of the narration pretty quick. So I don't think it's really that big a deal. If it had been, as you suggested, I think that'd be fine. But I don't think it's a problem.
I think it was a problem until we got there at the end. That's my deal. I just don't think it serves the purpose of the end being really poignant.
I don't think it does that. It just feels like we circled back.
Yeah, and maybe that was your goal, but I think that was a poor goal to put in place. But where do we go from the actual opening? Because I really don't remember.
Well, we just start talking about how his life is awesome.
Oh, yeah, he just lives the mundane, boring life, and he works. It talks about his work, right?
Talks about work. Most importantly, he talks about how he has insomnia.
Mm-hmm.
And how when you have insomnia, you're never really awake and you're never really asleep, which is pretty important, actually, for his character, especially with the revelations. Understanding how this Tyler Durden character might have come about. And of course, he's a big IKEA fan. Very important.
It's what it is. I don't know. He lives a boring life, and I think that's fine. It sets the tone, but it's also kind of weird.
Well, I think it's trying to give the audience something to relate to.
Do you relate to being that mundane?
That mundane? No, but I understand the frustration of having a job that's a dead end. You don't really enjoy it, you don't have a passion for it, and you just have small hobbies that you kind of fixate on, and that's really it. And I can understand how, with insomnia, and there not being a lot of options for you, your doctor's not being very cooperative, you find something else to latch onto. Now, he finds, what would those be called?
Support groups.
Support groups.
I just don't really, before we get to support groups, I just don't really think that him being exceptionally mundane helped me feel connected to that. And I'm a pretty boring person. I got my stuff on schedule. I go to the store the same day of the week. Like, I eat the same things frequently.
I can vouch that you are very boring.
Right. My hobbies are not exceptionally interesting. But I still don't connect with that even though I'm a pretty boring person. I still don't really feel like the dead-end job thing, yeah, sure. I don't know that my job is technically a dead end. I don't necessarily think I'm going to stay there, but that's not relevant to this discussion. But that's just life, I feel like. That's just a fact of life I've accepted, that few and far between do people find jobs that they enjoy and want to do and are a part of, or communities that they're actively engaged in and make them feel good and give them a connection to things, right? So I just don't understand that feeling of connection to Edward Norton and his boringness, right?
I understand where you're coming from, but I think a lot of people can relate to that. I think there's a lot of people who definitely have to relate to that. It's a pretty common stereotype of being frustrated with the world, yourself, things aren't going your way, you're not living the American dream, as it were. And so I think that connects with a lot of people. Yeah. I don't feel quite that strongly, but in 10 years, maybe. You never know.
Do you think that's a selling point in this movie for a lot of people? Do you think that's why it's kind of a cult classic now?
I think there's definitely a large group of people, particularly men, which is what this was definitely aimed at, that feel very frustrated with their lot in life. And so I think this movie does pull out emotion from them and gives them a new perspective, perhaps. It allows them to dream a little bit of, wow, what if I went out and did something crazy? Could that be life-changing? Now, I hope that you don't go too far, but when this movie came out, as I understand it, a lot of fight clubs did start up around the country. There's a lot of people who were like, yeah, I could understand that, and got into it. So it definitely connects with some people.
My deal is that the fight club is basically just an exercise in aggression, right? Which you could also just, go on a run and release your aggression, and that kind of solves the same deal for probably 90% of people. There's going to be people who need to actually have the physical act of aggression involved to be able to have things be released for their emotive and for actual neurotransmitters. But I just go, okay, whatever. I get that point. I do exercise and that is helpful, but it's not something that I feel like I'm deprived of. I've never really felt like I needed to be violent to release my emotive problems. I don't really get it.
I mean, that's why masturbation exists, right?
I don't know. I don't got anything here. That was so far out of left field that I don't have anything creative or witty or anything to follow with that. I mean, sexual things is, relief for that. I guess, you go BDSM status and, maybe you feel great and you get your aggression out, having some physical play in your sexual life. I don't know.
Perhaps, at the core, I can understand the idea that being in a fight, that kind of becomes an all-consuming moment, right? You have adrenaline, you're feeling pain, which may be a different sensation than you're used to. You can kind of get high off of that. It puts you in a new moment. It feels freeing to take out that aggression. I just think it's something easy to understand. And while it's not the way I would choose to relieve myself of stress or anger, I can at least understand how someone would get there. Now, I will say, this is the one movie that has at times made me think, wow, what would it be like to be in a fight?
Not pleasant.
Probably not. But it does make me curious. I've never been in a fight. How bad does it hurt? Probably a lot.
I don't know. I feel like the difference here is that, I grew up with an older brother by 3 years, and we, physically hit each other, as I feel like normal people do. Maybe it's not normal, and we're just terrible people. Which is fine, whatever. It's just painful. It's unpleasant. I don't know. I have kind of a low pain tolerance, and I just don't really think that being in pain is a pleasant sensation in that regard. What do I get out of that? Nothing. That's the answer.
Sure, but you don't account for everybody.
I am the arbiter of right, wrong, how you should handle all situations, because I'm a righteous man, okay? But no, we're really far away from where we were. He, as in Mr. Edward Norton here, is finding his new fix of support groups.
What did you think about that?
I thought it makes sense. I have worked with groups like this in church settings and stuff, and so I understand kind of how these things work and the setting, and so it wasn't weird to me. This is familiar. I kind of understand how this works. And yeah, you can find people who will just unchecked listen to you. Would you be able to, as a woman, show up to a group for testicular cancer? Probably not.
Yeah, that might be...
That's a little far. But yeah, these people aren't probably really going to question you or mess with it. They're going to pretty blindly just accept that you're there for the right reason.
Would you say that this movie portrays a support group pretty well then.
Accurately enough. I mean, it's a little dramatized, but I mean, they make it seem like they all have the same kind of structure, and they're not all exactly going to function that way. But I mean, like the basic 12-step model, which is generally a support group, is pretty static.
I see.
It doesn't move a whole lot, at least from what I have heard of and experienced. I don't know.
Well, inside these support group meetings, we meet two characters that are important. One being Bob.
Good old Bob.
He's got bitch tits.
Oh, I don't like that term either.
It's quite the term, but that's what the movie uses.
That is what the movie uses.
And Bob seems like a pretty nice guy. He's played by Meatloaf.
Kid's dead now, right?
He did recently die. Famous singer.
How come he didn't do any singing in this film?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't really know much about his acting career in general. I've only ever seen him in one other movie, and it was like a cameo.
Anyway, good old Bob. Bob seems like a depressed man, and he is.
Quite so.
Like, his acting is fine. His character, though, I'm like, I don't care.
Lost his testicles.
Potentially.
No, they say explicitly that he had to have them removed.
He had both removed? Or just one?
They said testicles.
Oh, okay, I don't remember. I'll trust you. This one time.
I appreciate that.
I mean, you gotta extend a little bit of trust sometimes.
Yeah, every now and then.
But anyway, yeah, the weird crying scene thing, and Edward Norton's fake crying is garbage, by the way, in that scene at least. It's really bad, and I feel like it had to be bad because we basically never repeat it.
Fake crying is very difficult, I think.
I feel like, here's the line. There's, like, exceptionally bad. Where you're like Edward Norton status, there's like, alright, that's fine, you tried, it's not the worst. And then there's like, wow, that's believable. There's only 3 options. There's nothing in between those options from what I've seen. It's just those 3 options.
I don't know that I can come up with a scene off the top of my head of a good fake cry in the movie.
I think that, your Lord of the Rings kids over there, at the end of Return of the King, they're all crying, and that seems pretty believable. Like, I thought they all did a good job there.
Maybe, I understand that. I'm thinking more of the sounds of it.
Oh, well, the sounds are what kills it a lot of times. Because when you're trying to make the sounds and not just communicate it by, like, actually crying, it sounds way more over-dramatized than it really is. Most people don't wail when they cry, at least in my experience.
You don't?
I cry very, very seldomly. My coworker did today tell me that I needed to come home and cry, and there were some other things that went down a very dark rabbit hole, but...
Well, maybe you should take a suggestion.
Maybe I should. It was definitely a woman, but yeah.
Oh, my apologies. Maybe you should follow her suggestion and cry for the world right now. We could hear your fake cry.
I don't think that's happening. Not at all. No.
That'd be pretty awkward.
It would be real awkward. But the scenes are pretty awkward with the Fight Club stuff. And they're supposed to be.
They feel awkward, yeah.
And that's fine. But then we get my good friend, Marla Singer.
Marla.
And I will tell you that because of how it was directed, and I knew that, like, things were in his head, I thought Marla was in his head for the longest time.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I felt more convinced, we'll get to that scene later, but where he's like, they're never in the same room at the same time. And so it felt very clear to me from there. And then it wasn't true, and I was just wrong, and I felt a little gypped. But anyway, Marla... I like the look of Marla. I think she really nails it. The makeup and effects on that at the beginning where she looks really, like, decrepit and just, I don't care, I'm probably high, I'm definitely smoking. We're in a tuberculosis group, I am definitely smoking in here. And you're like, oh, woman.
Very polite of her.
Yeah, she gives the deal. I don't care anymore. Life is done and over with, which I feel like allows her to fit into these recovery groups because she's just kind of fallen pretty far. She's racing to the bottom as fast as she can.
She definitely has a strong physical appearance in this film. You notice her, you see her, and you think, this woman has some problems in her life. And so, on that department, I think they do very well. I think her actress does a pretty good job of selling this character. Probably doesn't have the highest moral standard, as we can see very quickly. She's selling off clothes that she seemingly stole from a laundromat.
She definitely stole them from the laundromat. There's no seeming about it.
Correct. Selling those off. It's already a little questionable that we go into these support groups for, free coffee. Can you relate to that?
There's almost always free coffee. Yeah.
Is that the best part?
No, it's pretty crap coffee. Which is fair. You gotta, have a bunch of coffee for a lot of people. And, coffee is important to get right. That is generally coffee that I've decided is so bad that I will put sugar in it because I just don't want to deal with this bad coffee taste.
Staggering.
Well, it should be, because black coffee is the only way you should drink coffee.
Now, I never thought this woman was fake.
Oh, it just seems like it. Right, here's my justification. I'm going to go into this. Because she's kind of appears, right, out of seemingly kind of nowhere, into all these weird groups that he's in, and he's, found his new thing. And then she is just him, basically, but as a woman and further degenerate, right? And so it felt like he was so deranged, he made a manifestation of this because he felt like, he was in the wrong and all these things. And then it was kind of himself calling himself out with his delusions, is how I really took that. And I really sold it to me, right?
That could have been kind of cool, to be honest.
I think that would, for more like the psychological thriller or like psychopathic route, and it would have worked. Because your film basically sets it up that way and works until the very end.
When did you realize that she was real?
Oh, way late. Like, she shows up at the very end at the house. I was like, you have to be real, huh? Like, so late. Yeah, I'm telling you. Oh, my God. For the longest time, she was fake to me.
Interesting.
Now, she's gone for a large portion of the movie at a certain point before she comes back in that last scene there, but...
Yes, she's in it now. She's like the third wheel, really, of this story.
I guess. It was a weird deal. I did not. No.
After we were introduced to these two lovely characters...
Yeah, he's getting all angry that she is, him, basically, that she is, faking it, and he doesn't own up to it, and it really doesn't work for me. He doesn't seem like exceptionally upset either that he's being called out. He just kind of has a very flat acting, either direction, or he's not very good. I don't know that I've seen Edward Norton in anything ever in my life.
I definitely think it's the direction.
But she, plays it out really well. Or my favorite scene with her is where he's narrating after the clothes thing. He's like, Marla's philosophy on life was just like, she basically wished she was dead, but the tragedy was, or she could die at any moment, but the tragedy was that she hadn't died yet.
Quite the line.
And I was like, that is a striking line. I really liked that line.
Yeah, that's a strong one. That's a good quote.
But other than that, I don't know. I didn't have anything else to really say about support group Marla and Trey.
I do like how they start splitting the days up. Like, they're arguing, like, no, you can't have both brains. It's just like, no, I need them. And it's just this, like, negotiation breaking down. Okay, well, you can have it these 2 weeks of the month, and I'll have it the other 2 weeks of the month. Like, they really go down this list. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, they've got it figured out, and the scene is fine. It's nothing more than fine, though.
I don't know. I like it. I feel like it pulls me into these characters of being like, you two, you're not what I would say are good people. And really, I don't know that anybody in this film is a good person. But that's fine. I kind of like it for that. But anyway, after we've introduced these people, we start going around the country, taking a lot of flights.
Yeah, he starts doing his thing. He's, flying around for his job and stuff, and you get the, single-serving friend thing, and all of that. And I was like, okay, this is not that interesting. This could have been more interesting to have little blips of people he was talking to, right? Just people like his single-serving friends, like, oh, and this is, whatever. This is Jane. Jane sells flowers. This is Mark. Mark also works in the auto industry. I don't know. Just small little things, just 5 or 6 of those really quick. I think could have worked better. It might not have, because I wasn't really engaged, and I don't know that would make me feel more engaged. I just think it would be more consistent and feel better to prove the single-serving friend point, because then good old Tyler comes in, and he's like, oh. And he's kind of got a flashy look, purposefully, clearly.
Yeah.
And you could have really done something visual, I think, with that, of all these boring-looking people, and then just, boom, here's Tyler. Yeah.
Maybe. I don't really have a problem with it. I think the introduction to Tyler Durden is pretty strong. I think the chemistry between the actors, Edward Norton and Brad Pitt, are really good in this movie, actually. I think they play really well off each other. They feel very natural together, and I think you see that immediately in this first scene.
I, again, feel like we didn't watch the same movie.
I'm pretty sure we did.
A large part of my criticism is how unnatural they feel. The whole, them in their relations to each other and them talking, and it never feels like they are natural, because it always all feels very constrained. It all feels like I'm super angry and I'm just trying to not yell at this person. Like, almost all line deliveries have that same tension in the voice to me.
That was the word I was going to use, is tension. There's a palpable tension between them pretty much at all times. And it makes me think, while watching it, when is one of them going to snap? When is one of them going to get really angry? And you're kind of waiting for that moment, and it doesn't really happen. You have some interesting moments later as Tyler Durden starts to get more and more extreme. You start getting some more confrontation, and you get that secrecy angle. But I like the tension. It makes it feel like you don't want to be here, but because the situation life has handed you, you're kind of stuck. Your apartment was just blown up. That's a bit of a problem. And now you're stuck living in this house that no sane person wants to live in.
I mean, it's fair. He's definitely squatting. But no, their chemistry, I'll tell you, it works at the bar scene. Only in the one spot where they've just left. And Tyler's like, you gonna ask me, buddy? Like, that feels very good. I liked that scene.
Oh, yeah. That is a good scene.
Because that feels very natural and good. And the play back and forth is timed really well. It works really nicely. Like, would it be a problem if I did? Would it be a problem to ask? Like, it just feels very good and natural. That's the only time I think that they feel good, though.
Interesting. I do like that moment, but I think the chemistry is good throughout.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that scene that leads to them getting into their first brawl.
Mm-hmm.
And Edward Norton just hits him in the ear. And I thought that would probably hurt quite a bit to get clipped like that.
Mm-hmm.
Whew. I don't know that I'd be wanting to go any further. I'd be like, well, that was a really stupid idea. Please never hit me again. And that'd be the end of, that fight for me.
Yeah, they start their weird fight, which is that. It's a weird fight. It's supposed to be pretty awkward and weird, and that's fine.
Now, I like how the guys come out later and see, they would just be seeing Edward Norton just fight himself. And I have to wonder, could you make it a believable self-infliction? Like, it looks like you're really fighting yourself out there?
I don't know. I really don't. It looked fairly believable in the office scene, but I don't know if that really is, or what they did with that, or how that works.
I'm not sure. But
the scenes that really got to me, I'm on a tangent here, is where he's being pulled at the end by his hair.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way, right? There's no way you make that happen to yourself.
That's the one moment that I think was a poor choice. Because I agree, I don't know how that could even be fathomable. However, I do like how the cut with the video showing him beating himself up. I think that's pretty cool.
Oh, I hated that.
I like that.
Oh, that was really stupid. I was just not engaged at that point. I was just really ready to be done. I kind of thought I was going to like this movie more than I did. And then I didn't really like much of anything. And I was just like, okay, when do we get moving? Oh, we're never moving. Oh, we're finally kind of close to the end.
Did you think you were going to like this movie at all?
I thought I'd like it more than I do. Which is not to state that I thought I would like it. But I thought it would have at least like, oh, here's some things that I really feel like it did right on some major levels. But there's none of that.
Oh, I went in thinking, you are not going to like this movie.
Yeah, you had already seen it.
Yeah.
All I knew was a twist. And I thought, oh, there's some ways this twist could be handled really interestingly. And then we didn't do any of them.
I'll tell you, I had forgotten a lot of this movie. The whole support group thing, I was like, man, I do not remember this. I remember it taking a little bit to get to where we meet Tyler, but I didn't remember it taking that long. It takes a little bit.
On the meeting of Tyler, would also like to point out another cue that seems really weird, along with the previous line that I mentioned about, I know because Tyler knows, is that they have the same briefcase. And it seemed a little weird, just saying.
I understand, but in the grand scheme of things, a business suitcase is a business suitcase. That's a completely believable coincidence.
Not when the focus has been so much on, like, I bought all the things, and I knew these are the things that represented me. The briefcase. They're two radically different people, right? It seemed a little weird. I'm not claiming that it has to be there, and I think that I only noticed that because I knew. But
I think to go that deep into thinking about it, you'd have to be really outside the movie.
Oh, I was way outside the movie, let me tell you.
Yeah, well, I believe that.
But anyway, so now they're living together.
Roommates. Woo!
And, they're squatting in this weird place, and...
Man, this place is run down.
Yeah.
How much would it take for you to live there?
Like, I'm being paid to live there?
Yeah.
How much am I being paid to live there per month?
$1,000 a month.
$1,000 a month? That's all I get paid to live there?
That's not enough?
Well, that's far below. When I better be able to do something great out of this. To suffer through the cold and the miserableness, the grungy nature of it all, the lack of hot water. I don't think I can take that.
10,000.
A month? I don't know that I could survive a month knowing that I was only going to get 10,000.
Okay, so you'd need a lot.
I need a lot of money to sacrifice a lot of comfort. You're basically asking, like, how much would it take for you to go camping for a month? Basically the same type of question. They're on the same level.
I think camping would be more enjoyable than living in that house.
Oh.
At least camping, I accept the limitations of what I have. But in this house, I just think, can we just burn this down?
You know the only part about camping that might be better? My animal friends.
Yeah, when you're out in the wilderness, you do meet a lot of animals.
Yeah, I could have my own little, deer friends and bird friends and insects that are not centipedes.
And skunks.
Or moths. I could have a skunk be my friend. They could be my security.
Oh, true.
Mm-hmm. See, I got this planned out. Me and the animals.
All right, well, bad house, but they're bunking together now. And you start forming up a fight club.
Basically, yeah, their fight club forms pretty naturally, I guess. It's really weird because I don't really get to see it grow or how that works or anything, really. Like, I just see that this fight club thing is happening.
All you really see is, like, the two guys walk out of the bar and notice these guys fighting, and then you get, like, a little circle around them, and then it seems to happen every Saturday night. And eventually, another guy says, "Hey, let me in." So I was like, "Yeah, sure. Take off your tie. Don't want that getting in the way, right?" And eventually, you move it inside, underground.
Yeah, but I don't know how that happens or anything. It seems kind of weird. It's already set up by the time we got there. Nobody else is talking about this club, really, it seems like. Or, like, I don't see how other people got engaged in it, right? I realize, yeah, you're not supposed to talk about it. I got that. Don't worry. But somebody's talking or something's happening or people are coming to the bar and seeing, I don't know. I just felt very weird and very just like choppy. Just like boom, 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 boom. Everything's done. Well, I didn't get any details and I'm still kind of wondering why we got here.
I think the first time they walk in and they do their little head nod towards barkeep and talk over, we get down there. I think that's more than enough, really, for the scene. I think it works. You understand how we got here, for the most part. Yeah, the details aren't very precise, but that's fine. But we get down there, and we're laid out the rules of Fight Club.
Oh, yes, the rules.
How many rules can you remember?
1 and 2 are don't talk about Fight Club. There's a rule about shirts. There's a rule about tapping out. There's a rule that you have to fight if it's your first time. Where am I at? 5?
That's 5.
Was there 7?
There's 8.
There's 8. I don't think I got anything else. I could maybe get a few more, or 1 or 2 more if I tried, but I'm not going to.
Well, the last ones were only 2 guys fight at a time.
Oh, okay.
Oh, only 2 guys in a fight, and only 1 fight at a time. I was trying to combine those.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last one would be the fight goes as long as they have to.
Okay, yeah. There you go. I feel pretty good that I remembered 5 of 8.
That's more than I was expecting.
Oh, how many was I going to get? 1 and 2? Is that what you thought I was going to get?
I thought 3.
Yeah, 3.
Yeah, I thought you'd get 3.
Lowballing me. What a jerk.
Yeah, I mean, you proved me wrong.
But anyway, yeah, the rule thing, and I was like, okay.
What do you think about those rules?
Whatever, it's fine. It's a fight club that's supposed to be pretty unruly, and there's all these rules that all make decent sense. Whatever, I don't care.
My thing about when you establish a lot of rules to your audience, I really want them to be impactful or feel impactful at the very least. You think about something like Death Note. And this is a really weird poll, but that's a pretty famous one, where it's like, here's a list of things you can and cannot do. And while I'm not the biggest fan of that property, I at least think that aspect of it is pretty strong. When I look at this list, the only one that's impactful is the you don't talk about Fight Club. Partly because it's done twice. It's rule 1 and 2. And it's just as an idea, this is a secret. It's the first rule. You will not talk about it. I think that's a pretty strong engagement. But the rest, we have this whole scene where we're going over it. And it just feels a little underwhelming, like, only 2 guys to a fight. Is that really a necessary rule? I don't know.
Because what if, you're here with your friend and you want to not see your friend get beat down and you engage in a fight?
Sure.
Rules are there. I don't think these rules are bad. I don't think the scene of giving them is bad.
I think it's a well-delivered scene. I just wish the list was a little bit more interesting.
I guess, I don't know. I was already not super engaged and just kind of like, okay.
Fair enough.
I agree that, what is his name? Tyler delivers that well. I don't know his actor's name.
Brad Pitt.
Good old Brad Pitt. I do actually know who Brad Pitt is. I just didn't.
That's good.
In there. Yeah, his delivery on that is good. Particularly when he goes to the second rule being do not talk about Fight Club. The pauses in there. He sold that really well. Like, it really emphasized, like, no, if you weren't listening to the first rule, this is the rule. I will come at you if you do not follow these rules. He really had a dominating speech pattern and present. And I think it worked.
He definitely feels like the leader of these people. He has a charisma that pulls them in, and you can see that he has control. He's pretty smart, and he's confident. I think he sells himself pretty well.
Yeah, I think the acting in that particular scene works really well. I don't necessarily feel that he does the same everywhere else. He just doesn't really capture that same level of energy. He kind of just seems like a jerk. Like, if I saw this guy on the street, I would immediately think, that guy's probably a jerk. Like,
yeah.
And that's fine if that's the look you're going for, but he doesn't really feel like powerful and imposing and in control and like a cool guy, except for in that scene.
Interesting. I agree. He feels a bit like a wannabe tough guy with the way he dresses and everything. But I think the acting sells it, and I think as you get to know him more, you can see the character within. I think it's all very believable in the end.
I mean, you believe a lot of things about this film that are probably just not true.
Yeah, probably not. What do I know?
Oh, nothing. Basically it. Nothing. End of discussion. This movie sucks.
Alright.
But then I guess the next important beat is that Marla is having sex with Tyler. Basically.
There's sexcapades, as it were.
Yeah, it's just a deal. I don't know. I was just kind of like, okay, how long are we going to draw this out?
For quite a while.
For forever. And it was just annoying. And like, yeah, I like the initial deal of like, he goes over there and helps her out. Chooses for her to live, I guess. I don't really know why. That seemed kind of weird. But Edward Norton also seems to think it's weird. And so it doesn't help me at all. I'm just kind of like, okay, whatever. But yeah, like the dildo thing, that was a funny scene. That's the best probably Marla scene. And then they're over there doing their thing.
For quite a while.
Having sex all the time, I guess. I'm not really sure what's actually happening. I also feel like the scene where she has sex with Tyler the first time and she comes out and he's like, why are you even here? Like that scene feels really weird and feels like, yeah, something seems to be going on. Like something that he's psychotic to some degree. Which is my problem. I just feel like they wanted to try and give you some clues.
They definitely did.
But they felt really obvious. And maybe this is just because I knew what the twist was, but they felt really heavy-handed, just like, here you go.
That's the unfortunate part of a movie like this. When you know the twist, it's so hard to tell because you're already looking for it. You're going into the movie with the predisposition to be like, all right, where's the clues? They're right there. That took 2 seconds.
I think it would have been better just to do no clues.
No clues.
Yeah. I think it would have been more interesting because you could have really just focused on Edward Norton here just falling apart. Like, and everything seems to spiral out of control, and it's just this deal. And it would have sold the perspective that you gave me that I was very limited in my information, and I'm just kind of stuck in Edward Norton's deal. And then you, like, do the twist right at the end, right in the hotel room like you did it. And you're like, oh, man. Would have felt impactful. Would have felt really surprising. Right? But I just think there's too many points where things seem to be indicating something weird that I can't explain away in a normal fashion. There's too many, like, why would Marla just be upset that he is questioning why she's even here? She seems legit just kind of angry, and it doesn't make a lot of sense, besides the fact that he should know. Probably because he's the one who had sex with her. Right?
Yeah.
Right, it just doesn't feel like there's a plausible other explanation. Right, that's my problem. Right, there's no plausible other explanation for you in a hospital telling this kid the line that he then repeats to the doctor in this weird fashion. There's no real plausible explanation for, like, I know because Tyler knows. Especially because as you go later and the secrecy is driving the wedge, right? And you're like, what the heck? I don't really get this, and I don't know.
I think having no clues could have been interesting. I think you run some risks doing that, of making it very sudden and come out of nowhere. And that's its own problem. People don't really like to feel like they've just been taken advantage of.
Taken advantage of, that's what you're going with.
Well, it's like the whole... It's a surprise for surprise value at that point. I think people enjoy being able to be reflective and be like, oh, there was the clues. It makes people feel more intelligent.
I think it's more engaging if you handle it right. As I just pointed out, I don't think this was handled right. Perfect Blue, you haven't seen that. Most people haven't seen that. I have seen that. And it's good. And you can see small little bits of clues as to, like, the twist in that film. It all works out. But there's a lot of, like, weird scenes where you're just like, I don't know, maybe this is it. Maybe it's also this. I'm not quite sure. And there's points where, like, I was watching it through and I was like, oh no, now my theory doesn't work because this scene now invalidates how I was thinking about things. And then you get to the end and the payoff is good because it explains itself and I can go back and make everything work, right? That's, I feel like, the feeling that you were saying people got out of this and the feeling that I feel like isn't actually there.
I understand what you're saying. Ultimately, I think it's really hard to just judge with this film. Obviously, some people did feel surprised and enjoyed it. This was also a very controversial movie when it came out. It didn't do particularly well. It didn't truly bomb. It made its money back, but it was not a high success. And they were hoping it would be, especially with someone like Brad Pitt in it, you know, trying to get some star power in there. Although I think that was a little bit earlier in his career. Either way, it wasn't what they wanted. That cult classic nature did come in. Its home release got a lot of people. It sold well on home release. And so clearly word of mouth got around, and people have gravitated towards it eventually. And now it's pretty fondly remembered, actually.
It shouldn't be fondly remembered. You should remember this with sadness, because it had potential and failed. That's how you should remember this film. You're welcome for setting the record straight in the midst of all your lies.
Well, where do we go from the sex?
I don't know. I don't really remember. I really don't. This is the problem. The next scene that stands out to me is the chemical burn scene on the hand. You know what I'm talking about?
I definitely know what we're talking about.
Okay. But I don't know if there's something before that.
Largely, I think it's just day-to-day stuff. We're checking in with Marlo. We're checking in with the Fight Club. Things are advancing. I think this is where the movie starts to meander a little bit, and you probably could have cut some time out in this middle section.
Or you could have cut useless things and put in scenes that show me him, like, actually forming these groups and this organization. Show me that Tyler is being secretive and doing things.
You could have done that.
It would have really helped me understand he's building this basically crime organization. I guess they call it a terrorist deal. It would have sold that to me. But because that feels like it just comes out of nowhere, like we were, you know, driving 5 miles an hour and now we're at 90. Okay. Glad we're at 90. I thought we were still in the parking lot. Guess not.
Yeah, instead you get scenes like he meets Bob out in the wilderness, right? And then you start seeing Bob at the Fight Club. It's just small things like that. But I think the lie scene is probably the next big moment.
Now, I don't really understand how that works. Do you understand how that works?
Which part?
The chemical burn.
Supposedly lie burns the skin.
Why the moisture?
Uh-huh.
Notice, if you have to think about it that hard, it's not well explained. And I get that the point is that you're supposed to be engaged in the visceral reaction of this scene.
Why would it be important? Very few people could actually tell you the chemical reaction of lie.
Here's my problem. He's explaining things before that. I'm explaining how the soap making works and all that.
Right.
And then we just suddenly decide we don't need any more explanations. Chemical burn. Okay.
Well, yeah, it's supposed to be shocking, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's supposed to be about the visceral reaction of it, but I wasn't engaged. I was just kind of like, okay, this is weird.
I think that's a pretty engaging scene, actually.
I like that it comes back as, like, they all have this lie burn mark.
What entrance, huh? To your club? Well, if you want to join us, well, first things first.
Well, the real entrance is, you know, the 3 days out there or whatever.
Well, sure.
I don't understand. We're not supposed to talk about, you know, these things, but you are. You know, you clearly gave them a list of things they were supposed to bring and deal with, and I don't know. It's really weird, and I don't get to see how that works, and it's not really engaging to me.
It works because we're clearly not supposed to know, because we're seeing it from the narrator's perspective. So he's not seeing Tyler doing all this stuff. The narrator's confused, and so we're confused. We don't know exactly what he's saying to these people. How is he getting them to come in the first place? Why do they know the show about this random-ass house in the middle of nowhere that's really run down, stand there for 3 days? We don't really know. But we know this information is getting out there, and clearly Tyler wants that.
Yeah, but I didn't get it, and I just wanted to know. I really wanted to know. I wanted the information, because I think that could have been a really interesting deal, of how he built this crime organization, and how he picked his people, and like that would have been more interesting, instead of just jarring, going from 5 miles an hour to 90.
Yeah, but that doesn't serve the purpose of the twist, though.
I think it would have still served the twist just fine. If I see Tyler out there doing secretive things, right, it still then comes into play later when, Edward Norton is just confused beyond belief. Where he's like, where are these calls? And I'm like, where did I make these calls? And she's like, it's right there. He's like, what the heck? Right, that would have really sold the secrecy moments then, right? That would have been a payoff for like, oh man, you actually were doing all of those things. And or you could have done things like, he goes to bed, and then, he goes to work the next day, and he's just like, oh, what the heck, I'm so tired, I don't even know, I didn't do anything crazy last night. But in between that, you had the scene of Tyler doing things, and it could have been an interesting deal. There are ways you could have handled that, and I just think it would have worked better than what we got.
I agree they could have done it. I don't necessarily agree they should have done it. I think they would have been playing their card a little too much.
Playing what card?
The surprise. I think if we spent that much of a focus from Tyler's perspective, which we had never got before, it would feel a little weird. Because, the narration throughout this movie is pretty constant. You get it quite a bit. Wouldn't you want, Tyler then to start narrating it?
No.
But then, these scenes without narration, I just don't feel like it would fit with the movie very well. With the flow of it.
The flow that already feels minced meat?
Yeah, but that's an intentional weirdness.
I don't know why you took a risk and failed. And then you're over here criticizing my idea that would be a risk that is proven successful by other people who've played these games, right?
Well, sure. I mean, that doesn't mean they would have done that well either, though.
I mean, they could have failed. And I feel like 100% I think this film would have failed in my perspective either way.
Oh, yeah, probably.
I just don't think that this film delivers in any fashion, as I already stated. And I don't think that them doing things the way I want would have delivered either, because I think they would have done it poorly.
Well, but what did you think about the live scene itself?
I mean, it's fine. I'm so taken out, legit, the whole time by, how is this reaction happening? That's all I could really think about. I was like, maybe I should have known what this is. Maybe I, have common knowledge of why, and I don't. Or they said something and I missed it, but I was like, I don't think they did. The whole scene, basically, I was just like, what was I supposed to get out of this? It tells me it's it's a base, because vinegar as an acid is what should stop that. Now, the problem with that now becomes, as I think about it further, is that a base would take longer to actually cause this burn, unless you already had something that was going to react with it on the skin, which would mean your moisture from the kiss thing would have had to do it. But I don't know how that would exactly work, because there shouldn't be enough moisture for that to, seep into the skin, because it didn't look that wet. I don't know. It's getting worse the more I think about it. That's what I think about this lie scene. I hope you have some good things to say about it, though.
I think it's a well-acted scene. I really like how Edward Norton, he looks like he's in pain. I think he sells this really hurts. And, he's trying to handle it. He's trying to go to his mental trick, go into his cave, where you get another weird scene with Marlowe blowing smoke into his mouth.
And he blows the smoke back out, though.
Yeah, it's just a kind of a weird cave to go into, but whatever works, buddy. And I like the talk that's going there. It really feels like, Tyler, you're getting a little insane. I also just think, wow, that looks pretty painful. Chemical burns sound pretty painful by themselves. So I just think it's a well-shot scene. I like how he, holds him there, and, they're kind of, knocking things off the table as he's trying to move. I just think it's a well-directed scene. I like it.
Okay, I agree if you're engaged in the shock value of the scene, it's a decent scene. But I don't think it does enough to help me be engaged in the shock value of the scene. That's the problem of it.
Yeah, you're too busy trying to figure out how the chemicals work and...
A one-line thing could have worked, right? Now lie, you want to get this on your skin with moisture, because it will burn so bad. And he's like, let me see your hand. Boom! That would have felt better.
I think it's fine.
You would. Okay.
Yeah.
But from there, it's just like building the crime organization, right?
Pretty much, that's where you start getting the people standing at the door and waiting for their 3 days or 3 nights, whatever. I don't know that I could stand in one spot for that long. I don't think I'd make it.
I would not. I'm too much of an old man and I need my sleep and comfort.
Yeah, maybe 20 years ago.
Well, I'm pretty sure you told me I was 13 an episode or two back.
I was talking about myself.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
We all know 20 years ago you were nothing, so.
Yeah, 20 years ago when you were, what, 40?
Yeah, something like that.
Uh-huh. Anyway, I don't know that there's anything else of note for the rest of the film except, like, when Robert Paulson gets shot.
Well, what do you think about the scene where we go to the convenience store and we take that guy out back?
I wish they had killed him. The shock value of that.
That'd be
And
intense.
we never check back in on that, right? And I feel like the point wasn't that they were going to check back in on him. The point was I have instilled enough fear that this will work. But I just didn't really believe it. It's kind of something that I go, if you don't check in and make that fear still feel real, it's going to fall out at some point. And that's the problem. I also just didn't care. Like, it just felt like a weird scene that didn't need to be there. It should have just gone away. Or serve the purpose of showing, like, Tyler is insane. It's gone way too far. He's decided, I'm just going to kill a random person. Just boom.
I feel like that does convey that he's going too far.
It conveys that he understands how well fear works and he's using it.
But in the moment, I as a viewer, I think, is he actually going to kill a person? I don't really believe it, but I think there's enough there that, like, you kind of understand that this is probably him going too far, but I think it sells itself enough that you think, maybe he might actually do it.
No, I didn't believe this kid was going to die, and I was already disappointed. The scene did not tell me that he was going to kill him. It just felt like he wasn't going to do it.
Yeah, I don't know. I like the scene. I like the idea that, he's going to have a really good breakfast tomorrow. It's going to be the best breakfast he's ever had. Better than any meal we've ever had.
I guess, but we don't really deliver on any of that. It's just a weird standalone thing. You could try and connect it to the car crash thing if you wanted, and it might have been supposed to do that, but it didn't feel like it was supposed to do that.
I don't know. Personally, I think it was a pretty engaging scene.
Any other notable scenes you want to, bring up as we travel along through the story that I don't remember, that were probably not engaging, but you somehow found them to be?
I think that was one of the last ones that are really engaging before we get to Project Mayhem.
Oh, okay. Because, didn't you get Robert Paulson dying, basically, is the next thing I remember.
He dies.
I guess the car scene is before that, right? The car scene would have to be before that. Yeah, so we'll talk about the car scene first. Because as much as I just want to race to the end here, because there's nothing good to talk about. The car scene is important, where he's just like, you gotta let go. Now, I feel like that scene is really hard for me to understand what is happening there with him being Tyler Durden. There had to be a passenger there for that scene to work well. And so it works because, you put two people there. But in reality...
What would the backseat guys be seeing?
There should only be... one crazy person in the seat, and then maybe there's a passenger, maybe there's not. I don't really know. I was really confused how I was supposed to take that scene, and I was like, okay, you're crazy, this is weird, I don't really care.
I think it could just be him talking to himself up front, and then the guys on the back are taking that as like a lesson that he's giving them.
I don't know, we showed some scenes, and I think that was a scene that we should have shown with him not, having the split deal.
Perhaps.
I think it would have helped me understand how that was supposed to be portrayed, but it didn't. It failed, just like I, had surmised it would at this point. Is there anything else that's important? No, Robert Paulson dies. And that's a weird deal. I did not understand the chant thing. I was really confused.
His name is Robert Paulson. That was your turn.
Well, you didn't start again for me to start with you. I'm not doing it, though.
Too bad.
I just didn't... I understand it's like a cultic, togetherness of it. I get that. Why did they just start on this?
Repetition sears it into your memory.
Also, the weird kid who starts that, he's like, oh yeah, I get it. His name is Robert Paulson, and he just kind of gets him amped up and does it. I don't understand. That line delivery on that was weird. Everything was weird about that scene, basically.
Well, I think it worked pretty well.
Did they bury him in the garden? I assume so, because later it says that, but I don't really know that. I'm so lost.
These loyal men are definitely burying him in the garden.
But Edward Norton said no.
Yeah, they definitely did. These people hear what they want to hear out of this guy.
I'm confused by that whole deal. I really didn't get it.
Sure.
I didn't like it. And then Marla shows up later. Not long after, right?
Marla shows up.
And she's like, what the heck? You're insane.
Yeah, because he's like, Tyler's not here, and go away. He's not here. And then she's like, all right, well, whatever.
And then he starts to piece it together.
Well, he starts getting confused and doesn't really understand, and he finds the flight tickets in Tyler's room, and he starts going on all these flights trying to find him or figure out where he's gone or what's happening. And then he meets the other group in whatever city who are also chanting.
Mm-hmm.
His name is Robert Pearson.
Paulson.
It's Pearson now. I changed it for him. Sounds better.
It doesn't.
But he sees that, and then he sees the barkeep again. He's got his head up in that device, and he's like, "Is this a test, sir?" And he's like, "No, it's not a test." And he's like, "Well, you were here." And he's like, what?" And he's like, "Does he say you're Tyler Durden or something?"
Well, before that, he's like, "You were here checking on the security of things," and there's more like, "Are you sure this is a test?" And so who do you exactly think I am? He's like, well, you're Tyler Durden.
Yeah.
And then he goes insane, figuring it out. He has the whole confrontation scene with Tyler in the hotel room.
And that's where we get a pretty good quote.
Oh, let's hear it.
"You were looking for a way to change your life. You cannot do this on your own. All the ways you wished you could be me, that's me. I look like you want to look. I fuck like you want to fuck. I am smart, capable, and most importantly, I'm free in all the ways that you are not."
Is that a good quote?
I think it's a pretty strong quote.
The delivery's good, but the quote in of itself is fine.
I think it's written in a way that makes me believe the small confrontation, this realization, it's almost like you're realizing that that's what you want to be in a way, but it's being told to you. It's this weird inverse. I think it's a pretty good line, actually. I especially like how they use the word fuck in there, because I think this is a good example of where a swear word can kind of enhance what you're saying. Oftentimes they don't do that, but this is, I think, a good instance where it does. It puts a little bit of emphasis on it, on something that, some people would consider taboo to talk about, but he's embracing it. He's telling him, this is what you want. This is what you wanted out of yourself. I think it works pretty well.
It's abrasive, and it works. But it works on the delivery. You could have picked any buzzword and delivered it in the same fashion, and it would have had the same effect. The curse word in and of itself, I don't think uniquely does the purpose of it.
I shit like you want to shit.
Yeah, I think that could have worked just as well, honestly.
Okay.
Right?
It's interesting.
Like, it didn't have to be a curse word, in reality. You could have done anything, really, with that was a buzzword that worked for it.
I don't know. I think it worked. Particularly because sex is a pretty big part of this movie, with Marla and whatnot.
I mean, it works. I don't think it doesn't work. I just don't think that the curse word is a magical part of the sentence.
Oh, I don't know. I think it's a good enhancing bit.
Mm-hmm. Says the man who curses at people all the time.
That is what I do.
You go into work and you curse people down.
First thing.
Frequently, people have told me in my life they want to hear me say a curse word.
I've heard you say a curse word.
You have. That's true. A few times. Far more than a few, probably. We've known each other too long.
It's pretty underwhelming in the end.
I mean, I feel like it's underwhelming now, but I feel like if I actually said it, modernly, it'd probably because I'm really angry.
Yeah.
And then it wouldn't be underwhelming. It would just be conflict central in uncharted territory in your world.
True.
And you don't even like conflict that's just around you, so I don't even feel like you get the joy of even if it's not directed at you.
Only if I was sympathetic towards you.
What do you mean?
Like, if you were in a confrontation with somebody and I felt like you were wronged, and you were getting angry enough to swear at them, I wouldn't necessarily be bothered by that.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Anyway, we are really far off topic. I took us really far there. But after that, it's just kind of the collapse of the end, right? He meets with Marla, and that goes swimmingly.
Oh, really well.
Which was interesting. My thing about that I like is that she looks healthy. Her eyes aren't all sunken in. She's in a dark makeup. Her hair's not woo, going everywhere. It's a little more tame. She's not talking like she doesn't have a purpose anymore. She's over here this is unhealthy and I can't do this anymore.
You're insane.
And it all works really well. I think that the costuming on that, the makeup department really sold that for me.
It's pretty subtle, but it works.
Otherwise, there's not much to note, basically, on any of that to me.
I think that's a good scene, but I think that's just good chemistry and good acting, making it work. I like how when they're in the restaurant, and he's like, clean food, and he's like, probably, I don't recommend the clam chowder, sure. I think that's pretty funny.
I don't know. It just kind of conveys what was there. I already didn't expect it to be clean food.
You know what I just thought of that we didn't talk about?
Let's hear it.
What did you think about the idea of Tyler Durden going in and putting in these really inappropriate scenes into kids' movies? Just these single frames.
You know where my takeout on that was?
Let's hear it.
We've done this for marketing things. So we've tested to see if we just had a single frame of an ad, would people notice that or not? And would they be able to remember and tell us what it was?
Mm-hmm.
The answer is most people, yes, remember it and they can tell you what it was. So it's very hard to go into that scene knowing this fact and knowing that we've tested these types of things and not just feel like, okay. But they would have known because there's a whole long scene about it where he's, over here like, oh yeah, he did these things and they would never really notice. They're not quite sure. People are really sure.
I think people would. That's the thing. I agree. I think they would be sure. I like to imagine he's doing that knowing that the audience knows. And that's why he's doing it. Like, yeah, you saw that. You know what it was.
I don't know. The lines that they narrated with that made it seem like he was doing it on like more of a subliminal fashion and he thought that was funny and he got kicks out of it. Not that it was just an awkward moment. Some child's going to be like, what was that? Well, yeah, we're not talking about the giant penis that just appeared on the screen. Not happening.
Well, I actually think you are right. I agree because this movie tries to do it itself. Because there's a lot of times at the beginning of this movie where you see a single frame of Brad Pitt as Tyler Durden in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Where he just cuts in and you're like, oh, what was that? Did you notice that?
Yeah. It was not good.
I think that's weird. Now, I don't know when this research was done. Maybe this was before that and they thought, oh, well, maybe this does work or it doesn't work. Or
I mean, it probably, is after, but it's still something that, looking back now, it's not great. It's weird. I don't really care.
Hindsight's 20/20. But it's an interesting experiment. I just like the idea of someone going in and cutting in this one scene. It's pretty messed up, but it's funny.
Mm-hmm. What a terrible human being you are.
I don't pretend to be perfect.
I mean, I need you to try and be more righteous like me.
I'll try.
Anyway, you got anything about the end you need to talk about how it was so impactful or great or like you were engaged and enjoyed this or... I don't have much to say that's good about it that we haven't already touched on. I have one thing that's good about it if you don't got anything at the moment.
I like the moment where he goes to the police.
I like the moment where he goes to the police. I actually forgot about that. I'm not going to lie.
Interesting. Like, he goes to the police. He's like, here's all the information. I'm doing this crazy stuff. It's kind of weird. And, you need to believe me. And then, the main guy leaves. And all the other guys in the room are like, wow, that was really brave. And you're just immediately like, this is not good for you, buddy. It really shows just how deep his ring of people has gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We went from 5 miles to 90. I know. I'm aware. We didn't stop anywhere in between that.
Yeah, what's the fun in that?
The fun would be I could see something and be engaged and be like, oh.
Nietzsche, you need to learn to let go.
I don't need to learn to let go.
I like that scene. They do have this weird fascination with the idea of cutting off the testicles of a guy.
I feel like it's supposed to be symbolic because they set it up at the beginning with the testicular cancer thing. And,
well, probably.
And it's supposed to kind of, probably be a satirical point, I feel like, on masculinity and such. But again, I didn't feel like it quite delivered that either, so maybe I was reading too far in. And I was like, I don't know. I don't care. Stop.
I think some people probably do read into it. I don't necessarily. You do get that scene where they, harass the
police chief.
Yeah, police chief. Which is kind of an intense scene. That'd be a pretty scary moment in your life to have these guys just hold you down where they're threatening to castrate you. That'd be pretty scary.
I think it would have been better if they had made it more visceral. If they had, actually had something that kind of looked like, fake testicles or something. And they just, cut it, and they're like, see? And then he, flips out, and then he realizes it wasn't real. The fear in that moment would have really sold it, I think.
I don't think they needed it. I think there's plenty enough.
Nah, I think it needed to be further.
I think you're just a sicko. That's what I think. Man.
I was just bored. I wasn't engaged in that.
Yeah, so you thought, how could we make this
this just crazy? Yeah, that's where I went.
Okay. What scene stood out to you?
I like that when the buildings blow up at the end, that they actually look like they're being blown up. Like, actually how they would have to fall.
Interesting.
Because there's multiple explosions on different levels, and they collapse in on themselves, which is exactly how you'd have to blow up a building, from my understanding, if you wanted it to fall, and then they just...
So you like the expertise of explosions?
I like that it felt accurate.
All right. I mean, that's valid. My problem was that the CGI is from a long time ago, and it looks like it.
It doesn't look bad. It just looks dated.
That's fair, but you kind of just look at it and be like, we've come a long way.
We have come a long way. But then, I guess, we gotta talk about that he shoots himself, I guess. I don't know.
Shoots himself in the mouth, or through the cheek.
Is that what I was supposed to get out of that?
Yeah.
Because I was not getting it. I was so confused as to how he lived, and I really just think that it would have been better if he had actually killed himself.
It would have been pretty intense.
Well, I think it would have been more impactful and intent if he had just been like, no, I can't do this, I'm just crazy, and then as everything starts to come down, he shoots himself. Because he can't bear with it. He's like, oh man, I just caused this and I didn't prevent it, and just,
I almost feel like you die
right there.
It's like you die a martyr at that point then, in a way.
In a sense. But I think it would have been way more impactful and interesting than the weird ending we got.
I do know it's different from the book. I like when he's disarming the bomb and Tyler's over there, be like, oh, you don't want to mess with that one. I feel like that's a pretty cool scene.
I think the tone, specifically with the green wire, anything but the green wire, right? That really, really sold it for me. I liked that particular line. I didn't like anything really else about that scene, but I think his line delivery on that specific point was really good.
I like when Norton says, if you know, then I know.
I didn't, because I already assumed that line was coming back after the first time I heard it.
Oh, sure, but I still like it.
Wrong again. You are?
Oh, I'm sorry.
You got any other things you want to be wrong about?
No.
No?
I don't need to do that to myself.
The only scene that I think we kind of talked about, we kind of glossed over it, was the work scene where he says he gets corporate sponsorship now.
Oh.
I think that is really interesting because it's very well planned. So I liked the play of that. I liked how clever it felt.
I like the look on the boss's face.
But it feels very real though. Like he's just standing there like, I'm not doing anything. Should I? No, I probably shouldn't go over there. Like,
yeah, and then he comes over to him and he gets his hand so you can get your blood onto his hands, which is naturally going to look like, oh, yeah, of course you weren't hitting him. Now, your hand would have bruises and whatnot if you were actually hitting him.
You can match the bruising. Even if your hands didn't bruise, you can match the bruising on the person to it. And that's the fault of that, but
it's still a cool scene. I like it.
The scene in and of itself works as a standalone scene, but it's weird that, like, he just gets to walk out with all this stuff. What happens? Did that guy get fired? Did he not? I don't really understand, because you needed this guy to be on your side, to be able to pull the strings for you, but if you just got him fired...
All you needed was to be able to threaten to sue, and that company does not want that, and so they're like, alright, here's all your benefits that we're just gonna give you. Now you're good?
I don't know. Something to play that out would have worked for me better. Again, details. I needed them.
I'm glad you brought up that scene. I actually intended to, but I forgot about it. I like that scene. Just because I like how he looks when he's just punching himself, and he just looks ridiculous. But there's a scene where he knocks himself back into the wall, into a glass...
It's a shelving unit.
Shelving. And then he's crawling back to him, and you can see all this broken glass in his arm, and it's all bloody and whatnot. I think that looks pretty cool.
It's a well done scene. It just feels too standalone. Really do much for me. Any other scenes that we didn't talk about? Do you feel we need to bring up?
Not really.
Any other great quotes you wanna read off for us?
Yeah, I got some.
Okay, let's hear it.
It's only after we lost everything that we can do anything. How do you feel about that?
It's a desperation tactic, right? It's if you have nothing to lose, then sure, that makes sense. But you could also just have enough of a purpose that you are willing to do anything to accomplish this purpose, right? Which is the adverse of that. And so I don't like the fact that we are desperation playing it. You're down to nothing, so, you have nothing to lose and it works. It does work, but it feels very singular, that's the only way it works.
But I think it fits for their character.
It's a fine line in the film. I'm not going to claim it's not a good line in the film and, works for the film, but you asked what I thought and felt about that, basically, and that's what I think and feel about that.
Another one?
Oh, another one. How many do we have first? I want to hear how many quotes I have to suffer through right now.
3 more.
3 more. All right. One of these better be good. I better be yeah, I really like that.
On a long enough timeline, the survival rate for everyone drops to 0.
It's repeated too often. It's just a fact. Sure, great, reassuring facts, I guess.
It feels like a very nihilistic take.
It is a nihilistic take. The whole film is very nihilistic.
Very much so. Now, a question of etiquette. As I pass, do I give you the ass or the crotch?
I will tell you, I think that that's an acceptable line. It's all right. It reminded me, there's a whole little James Corden segment where he was going through the aisle, and he gives the person who's the first seat, they're like, okay, what Which way am I going? You get to choose for the whole row what they have to deal with. And that's all it reminded me of. And so it's got like a positive connotation because I like James Corden.
I like that line because it's a very relatable line in life. Like, I feel like I've asked that to myself. It's like, which way do I go?
Have you really?
Yeah.
This is a real thing.
Yeah.
All right, I need to know if other people ask this question to themselves. I've never thought about it. I'm telling you right now. I go down whatever way I want to go down.
Well,
And
you're so skinny, you could just walk right through.
Maybe that's the difference here. But I need to know if other people think about this. Like when you have to pass down an aisle or something, or you're on an airplane or whatever, do you think about which way you should face?
The other thing I like about that is he passes by Norton with his ass. But when he goes by the flight attendant, he uses the crotch.
Yeah, I know.
It's a clever use.
It's not. All right, let's hear it. There should be one more, right?
Correct.
All right, let's hear the last quote that you think is good.
The things you own end up owning you.
I mean, in some sense, I think that can be true.
Materialism, right?
Right, it's another nihilistic take. It says that possessions are just a problem, right? And I don't think possessions have to be a problem, is my issue with this statement. Like, I think possessions can start to own you. You can also get owned by, the fact that you feel you need to work some, dead-end job, or you need to work this job because it's the purpose you feel you need to have. You can also be like, oh, these people in my life, have a negative impact, and they kind of own how I've structured myself and live my life and affect that. High school cliques, right? I don't feel like I need to labor the point any further.
No. What I like about some of these quotes is not that I necessarily agree with them, but I like how they're implemented into the film and they fit very naturally. I believe that these characters would believe that. There are definitely people who do agree with these takes, and I can see how that would draw somebody in. And so I think they fit very well thematically with the movie, and that's what I really like about them, is that they stand out as their own because they're easy to understand, they're easy to digest, and it's something you feel like you know somebody maybe that would believe this. And I think it's pretty cleverly implemented.
I don't think it's clever. It serves the thematic purpose that it's supposed to. Like, I feel like it's almost like I want to say they did their job right, but it's not quite good enough to be that. It's kind of like, okay, yeah, you pick some moments to have some thematic themes, but your movie doesn't follow the thematic theme all the time, so I don't really know what to tell you.
I don't know. I mean, there's quite a bit of quotes in this movie, to be fair, but I like some of them. I think it's a pretty quotable movie. The most famous being "You don't talk about Fight Club," right? Everyone knows that.
Everyone does know that. I knew that before going in. I was like, okay, whatever. On that, there is the scene, I think, now that I think about it, the only scene with Edward Norton that I was like, man, you really sold that. Where his boss comes up to him with the Fight Club rules. He's like, is this you? And he just goes on, though. And I really liked it, because it really sold it to me. But I also kind of like that play. I like to kind of do that with people, not clearly to that extreme, but just kind of like pile ridiculousness upon ridiculousness. But now in that case, it was a threatening deal. In my case, I think it's funny and it's humorous to just kind of that level of ridiculousness. That's what I thought about with that scene. And so it was good, but it was really well delivered. He really sells it. And then the ending, though, I was like, how are you getting out of this? Because I was kind of engaged in that. And then he's like, or maybe you shouldn't just bring me every piece of dang trash you find. I thought that was good.
Let me tell you what I liked about that. Was the details of how he would kill these people. Like, I'm going to use this gun.
Oh, it sells it, yeah.
Yeah. It's these details, and the boss is just like, what is happening? And you can tell he's pretty nervous, rightfully so. If I ever heard someone start talking like that, I'd be a little scared too. But that is a good scene.
Anyway, I cannot think of another scene to talk about. I gave it enough praise. You got any other scenes you want to go on about?
No, I don't think so.
No more quotes?
No more quotes.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure, as always. Now it is your turn to have at us. To come tell me all about what's so great about Fight Club and the proper etiquette that you go through when you're passing through an aisle or getting out of your seat in an airplane. Important things that I need to know about. But if this brought you some pleasure, I need you to like, comment, subscribe. I don't really know that I need you to share this with people, though.
Yeah, it's very important that you do not share this episode with anybody. It is your mission. Do not break it.
Don't be the sad people in the Fight Club movie who definitely talked about it.
Yeah, don't be those losers. You're better than that.
I need you to aspire to some righteous secrecy right now. Alright, well, let's get to it. What are you giving this?
I'm gonna come in with a 7 out of 10.
I'm giving this a 4 out of 10.
Have at us.